Hey, Leandro. Good to see you again. So you introduced to me an idea that you already mocked up in V0, and we talked about like try out to create and apply spec-driven development. So basically to define the user stories and then to implement the process. So maybe you want to give a little bit of a background of it. Let me run it locally. So I just
All right.
yeah, I'll just cloned it and I'll just run it real quick. So I install. Let me also approve pm approve builds. Yes. And let me then also run the dev server. And let me copy this. Open it here. So I haven't opened my code editor yet, just the terminal. Yeah, walk me through. What is this?
It's already. Yeah. Okay. So there's a friend of mine. We were exploring different projects, and he came with this idea of uh, an app that helps you to learn a new language, huh? Sort of like, and you learn new language with books. So he is now in Lombok. His wife is from Indonesia, and as we speak, he's trying to learn Indonesian. So the way he's trying to learn Indonesian is he goes to the bookstore and buy books for children who wants to learn English. So they have very simple stories in Bahasa and the translation in English. So the kids can read the thing in Bahasa and at the same time they read the same thing in English. So he's buying those books and he said, "Wow, I'm learning so fast because I those books are so cheap." And it's very simple stories, very fun. It's children stories, but still, you can have a little bit of fun because that is a story after all. So then he said, we can, but why we don't try to test it out, right? We write some stories, and we build a translation, and if we see that people are interested on that, we can easily scale because we can create a lot of stories very customized by what you want, using GenAI. And that's the idea. So the for to test, we want to build this app or website that you have plenty of stories, and then you read the story with the Bahasa first, and then we review what is the translation of that in English. And yeah, that's about it. So now I need to build a database of stories, because this is all hard coded on the prototype,
Right.
and start to add features such as adding an illustration per page, or things like that.
Well, yeah, that's cool. Well, let's start by getting this backed by a backend, and I've been using Supabase in some projects introduced by some friends to me. So I'm actually very noob. I don't know how to use this properly. So I just set up a project for this mockup, and I know that there's a way to set up an MVP. Sorry, an MCP. There we go. Oh, there we go. So we can just copy the MCP server out here and just add it straight. And we can even say it's for Claude Code. And we can just add that into the project directly. That looks pretty cool. So I've cloned it here. I'm going to stop the dev server, open this into the IDE, even though we don't really use an IDE anymore. I still like to use the IDE to basically review the code. So call it an old habit, but cool. So I've already installed some of these things. Let me do the MCP setup. So I copy this command, just do this thing here. There we go. If I run Claude, it says I trust it and I trust the MVP. I'm sorry, the MCP. I keep selling MVP. Okay, so that looks good. But before I go into Cloud and use, if you're familiar with Cloud Code, you can use a plan mode and it helps you build out features very quickly. I'm also going to go and try and use something else called Spec Ledger. So Spec Ledger is a CLI that helps me manage projects in a spec-driven development way. Oh, by the way, did you already manage to set up the app for this on Spec Ledger?
I do have Spec Ledger. I downloaded I linked with the project in GitHub.
Mm-hmm.
So what I can do is, apparently I can add you here on the project, on this
Okay.
project. So let me do that. You should have been added to the project.
Oh, yes, I see it now. Okay. So this is now an empty project. And I'm going to use a CLI to bootstrap the first spec. So at the moment, you can do it through the UI as well, but I live in the shell in the terminal, and we're definitely trying to improve the user experience from people that prefer the dashboard. But I'm going to do it through the CLI, and I'm going to run init. I'm going to do picara as the let's just so yeah, maybe. So a little as I do this right now, it prompted me for a short code. That's going to be how it's like a JIRA 4-letter acronym of the tickets. And then the playbooks, currently there's only one playbook. There's supported Cloud Code. We're adding support for Copilot and Open Code as well. So for now, it's focused on Cloud Code. It detected some front-end Next.js, so it's going to initialize a design system. Okay, so it says do the onboarding to do the guided workflow. So we're going to do that. So as you see, Spec Ledger I automatically launched Claude Code for me. And it's starting to build the existing constitution.
So what Spec Ledger is doing, if I understand, is reading the code and building the initial specs for this. Is that right?
At the moment, it's actually building a constitution. So the constitution, as you can see, it explored it and it does the constitution here. With this, it's going to try and identify what are some good patterns, like that. Whenever we design a new, whenever we want to implement features for this project, what are the rule of thumbs that the specifications of those features should align with? So it explored your existing code base, which was generated by V0, and then it clustered a couple of principles tailored for this project. So it says here, mobile first seems to be an important principle. All UI must be designed for mobile viewports. So I think, yes, that's something that you want, because I can see the original design is doing this very well. Client components by default. So it's an interactive learning app. Components use client by default. Server components only for data fetching layouts. Sounds good. We want primitives with chat-cn. Is this a hard requirement? And this sounds very technical. Maybe this is maybe something that Vercel V0 put in place. I'm not sure if we want to keep that. We can choose not to if we don't want. But it seems like, yeah, I think you put framer motions as one of the ways that you animate, right? I think that's a good principle. I might want to keep this one too. We can add more related to UI if we want, or we can move to the second part. So this is static content first. We're not going to add that because this is exactly what we want to do right now. We want to remove static content. No backend requirement. That's definitely not a rule that we want, right? So it says right now it's using only static content, but this is something that we really want to change. Bilingual model. Every content must have Indonesian and English. I think this is very specific to the technical details, and I don't feel like this is a rule that matches to like a project vision. Like for me, principles mostly are like Yagni, you're not going to need it. Dry, don't repeat yourself, or maybe not dry, wet, which is write everything twice. So those type of principles are kind of like, I like Yagni because it makes sure that the AI tries to keep things simple. So these data related principles, I don't want any of them. Yeah, I'm just gonna keep it at that. So at the moment, these principles is whenever they're currently focused mostly on the UI and nothing related to the backend because or the way the data is managed. Okay, so now it has a little additional information. Accessibility matters, agrees. Okay, no over engineering basic. I don't know about performance score, but I'm going to ignore that. I think this is something that can be improved on SpecLedger to be a little bit less technical or a little bit too focused on this project right now. I think it should be a little more like high level guiding principles. But anyway, let's continue. Component isolation, git conventional commits. I like this one. Are you going to deploy to Vercel?
Necessarily.
Not necessarily. Visual regression awareness. UI must be visually verified. I don't know about this. Let's just keep it like that. Yeah, I'm not 100% happy with those principles, but maybe let me ask change. Yeah, we will add the backend, so we need to get rid of any data related principles, and also the principles should be more high level, not too technical, but based on software design principles such as Yagni, you're not going to need it, or sorted paths to MVP, short-lived branches, feature branches. We try to keep the scope narrow of any features that we deliver. So the constitution rules and principles should validate that whatever user stories and functional requirements and tasks are scoped suitably for a short feature branch. And MVP path is clearly identified. Okay, cool. I think that's the greatest part about these agent interactive working together is that you can redirect it, right? MVP first, short-lived, narrow scope by default. Design, simple over clear. Mobile first. I think that's still important. Readable code. I think this is such a blurry, like prefer readable code over elegant abstraction. Okay, I don't know. That sounds weird. I'm just not gonna conventional commits. That's okay. Submit. I think those principles are a lot more appropriate for this project. Okay, I know this is like a little bit frustrating when you are used to just build a mockup, but Spec Ledger is really meant to be an alignment between you and other people within the team and agents. So we're trying to solidify principles first. And if you're familiar with SpecKit, this is what's called Constitution. Or if you use Google Conductor, they also, put some ground rules down before you start the work. So all of the definitions or all of the feature that you want to build will always be tested against these core principles. I think we found a better middle ground now between the deep technical, like what we got in the beginning, and the little higher level, like rule of thumbs or that we want to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have you ever got into the situation of you want to change the principles midway?
Absolutely, yes. So as you can see now, it has created here version 1. These principles were added. And so this is a ratification. So the requirement now is that this needs to be aligned across the team. And then as you modify, as you go and you find out that this, when you're building features, and then every time it tries to verify that it matches the constitution, and every time it fails principle 3, it says principle 3 is not being followed. Then you have to okay, maybe principle 3 is not appropriate because we're having some issues with it and we want to fine tune it. So you definitely need to fine tune this. So these principles. So to me, this view here, I don't really like it. So I just gonna ask to commit what we've done, and then I want to push it up and have a nice view to evaluate it, and then probably send it over to you or somebody else across the team. Because again, the main problem that SpecLedger is trying to solve is to allow us to build software together and evolve that software. So not just like the first phase, but keep iterating on it, right? So it's like your constitution is now in place with 7 principles. SpecLedger will help you to specify, describe what you want to build, clarify, resolve ambiguities, plan, and so on. But let's commit and push the bootstrap. I want him to include the MCP and Claude command prompts. Unfortunately, agents non-deterministic, they very often are quite conservative in what they will commit. And so now he's actually adding in the MPC. Why do I say MVP, MPC, everything but MCP? I personally do not like MCPs. So maybe that's why. Okay. So why do I want it to commit the MCP JSON config? Because when you clone it and you run it on your machine in Claude Code, you will immediately get the prompt to authenticate, and then it will connect to your Supabase instance. And the MCP will give Claude the ability to manage your database schema and to create the tables and, query the data and basically interact with your data. Of course, we are doing this as an MVP. This is where people start saying, "Hey, Claude deleted my database," right? So we are doing this in depth, right? I'm not saying have an MCP connected to your production database. Okay, so I'm just going to commit. I actually didn't read the commit message, but I thought it looked good. There's nothing else here. So let's push it. Yeah. Now, the reason why I pushed it, you know what? Actually, this is a good first interaction. I feel that the constitution should be like a link here. The moment that is pushed on main, it should appear that we can review it. Or if I do it in my editor, I want to have a markdown view of it, right? So I think the constitution is here. Okay, so yeah, so the principle is Yagni. Don't build what's needed right now. Every feature must be justified by concrete requirement, no hypothetical future. I think this is very common with agents, like they go like, maybe in the future you will do this or that. Second, MVP first delivery. Every feature must have a clear and identified MVP. Oops, don't double click. Specification must distinguish P1 MVP from nice to haves. We should always focus on delivering and building P1s first and then iterate on those. Short-lived feature branches. Feature branches must be scoped to merge. These time estimates of Claude are always funny to see, right? Because usually it means, if it says 1 to 3 days, that usually means 1 hour or like 1 to 3 hours. Narrow scope by default. Spec must resist scope creep. Mobile first UX, accessibility matters, conventional commits. So I don't know how you will validate some of these specs against accessibility matters, but we'll see how that goes, right? So I'm pretty happy with this constitution, and we are ready, I think, to work on the first thing that we want to do. So I'm using Opus 1 million context window. I'm at 66% context usage, which is not a lot. I can say that if you're using maybe Sonnet 4.6 with like 400,000 context window, you may be reaching already 60% of context window at this point. And there's absolutely no problem with just clearing the session at this point and just go like, okay, I want to specify. So I cleared the session. If I go, I can see, of course, the session that was there, right? The onboarding one that we just did. The first thing I need to do is run specify to create a feature specification. And then I have to put optionally clarify, and then we'll see the rest. So the first thing I have to do is to do the clarify, the specify. Okay? Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm going to close that. I'm going to go into Claude. And actually, while I'm at it, let me just look at the MCP. Let me just authenticate Supabase. It's authorized. Claude Code. Successful. Can close it now. Let me just ask it real quick. I find that a lot of the configuration, whenever I'm not sure if it's configured correctly, I just ask the agent, like, hey, there's a Cloud Code hook failing. What's failing? And then Cloud Code will look into its configuration, identify the failing hook, and help me resolve it. Like a lot of my
Yeah.
troubleshoot now, I just ask the agent to do it for me, right? Anyway, yes. Well, you know what? You can list tables. I feel like I should allow it to list tables. Okay, the local is ignored. That's good. So it says, yes, I can see the Bicara Supabase project. No tables in the schema yet. It's a fresh project. Then I don't want to do anything with it. I don't know if I want this in my context, but let me just do the specify now. The data needs to be in a backend. I'm going to keep a very simple user story, right? I mean, a very simple prompt. High level, I just want the data to be in a backend. So now it's running that prompt, and the prompt is very detailed. It's I forgot to do one thing.
So
Make
that's
sure.
typically what you do. Like you give a very simple specification first, and you evolve on that.
Yeah, but actually, okay, it depends. In this case, there's a lot of information already. Oh, if I start from scratch, right? Not like this mockup that you already built. If I start from absolutely scratch, my first specify will be very detailed. It will be, I'm building this app. I want mobile first design. I want to use framer motion. I want to use, basically your initial prompt, right? But you did that initial prompt in V0, right? And in this case, there's already a lot here. I think I might have needed to do the init first before I did the specify. And this is definitely something that we need to add to the onboarding, because I think onboarding should also initialize. So anyway, I also told it to read the spec template, because I noticed that it often tries to write without reading. So he's going to create a spec branch. So he's creating the first spec, which is the data backend. And now he's basically writing out the spec, and then you and I will review if what he wrote makes sense. He or she, I don't know, it? How do you refer to Claude? Claude. It's a male name, so. Anyway,
Yeah, I
I do
think it's
think I
a
should, because they chose the name like that, right? Maybe there's, I don't know, I'm going to do that in the same time.
Yeah, but I do also have this thinking of how to name an agent. I'm
Yeah.
creating an agent in OpenClaw, and her name is Bella. And there's a sub
He's
agent, which is like my career scout, and then it's a he. So I tell
nice.
her to tell him. It's fun.
Okay, I kicked off Cloud Init to build a bit of a better system prompt. So I also enabled accept edits, because I don't want to get notified for everything. Okay, so it has created a spec.
And I can go to UI of SpecLedger, and I can see the spec already.
As soon as I push it. So right now
Oh,
it's
okay.
in Git, but it's on my machine. I need to push it into GitHub, yeah?
Oh, okay. I need to...
Yeah, so I'm not running dangerously allow. As you can see, I'm approving the Git add, I'm approving the Git push. I think it's gonna take a bit more time for me to get to that point. Okay, so we have the data backend spec here on the UI, and as you can see, there's 3 phases: specify, plan, and tasks. We're currently in the first phase, and so we're gonna look at the spec, what it created. So we see here that the data needs to be in the backend. Pretty basic. User story 1. We want to be able to browse the book library from the backend. When a learner opens the Picara app and sees the library in books, the catalog is loaded from the backend rather than hard-coded. The experience is identical to today. That's cool. This is priority 1. Given the app loads, when the home screen renders, all books are displayed. Given the backend is available. This is already an interesting wording. Given the backend is available. What does that mean? That's probably going to start going into like handling errors and failures, right? There's probably going to be an edge case like, what if the backend is not available?
Yeah.
Which is some of the things that if you don't like do spec-driven development and you go with vibe coding, it will implicitly assume if the backend is not available, I'm going to show this error page. But is that what you want, right?
Yeah, in this case, it's what I want.
Yeah, probably. But we make with spec-driven development, we make all of this explicit, right? Yeah, and it even goes into like if it's unavailable, the learner sees a clear loading or state rather than a blank screen. Yeah, there should be an error state. Yeah, that's what we just said, right? Then a learner selects a book and reads through its pages. Displays bilingual content, but this is kind of like already there, right? The most important thing is like the page content is loaded from the backend instead of static files. So here's where I may already have some idea where I'm going, like, you know how you can have SSG, like statically generated sites. So basically you do have a backend, but when you publish, everything gets rendered down into like pre-rendered pages. So when somebody visits the site, they're just getting served a pre-rendered page, and that's because you edit few times and you read many times, right? There's a lot more writes than reads. So sorry, there's a lot more reads than writes. So I'm thinking, like, does it need to be loaded every time from the backend? I think maybe that's okay for the MVP, but the next step would be like we want to build some type of caching layer, I think.
True.
Yeah, but like, the first thing is let's put the table schemas there, because I'm pretty sure the next thing, yes, here, right here, already we start talking about content management, right? Because now we have a backend, now we probably want some type of author and this type of things. Now, when I read this, when I talk to you, because of the time we want to keep this stream short, I would already be like, I don't want that feature now. I just want to create the backend schema. I just want to set up the front end so that it loads from the backend. And anything related to content management, we want to put that into the next feature branch, right? We can always create an admin login, and we can create an admin editor for content editing, and we can do content management later, right?
Yeah. So, but while you're saying that, I'm thinking we created this first specification, and we don't want to deal with cache yet. We just want to do the database connection.
Yeah.
But at some point, let's say that we finish the spec and the implementation is working, is getting from the backend. Great. Now, second story we are creating. Is it a good practice to keep the final state of the user story, or you have the first spec and the second spec that changes the behavior of the platform, and you should always read all specs to know what is the final state?
Yeah, so that's a good question. At the moment, Spec Ledger creates a feature branch for each spec, and then once we are merging things, the features that were built will all stay within that feature branch. And then when you do another feature branch, you say you want to work on another spec, it's going to explore the code. It's going to find out we already have this, but we don't have a caching layer. It's going to generate a new one. Like if specifically we say we want to build a caching layer, it's going to create a new spec purely for building the caching layer. And so do we get like one final spec of all the user stories, and how do we aggregate them? At the moment, we don't. At the moment, there's every single time we iterate it, there's a separate, it's more like a decision record, or like we started with this 001, we came to 002, we added a caching layer, we added 003, but we can still maintain the main branch, the trunk where everything's merged, that's the final story. And we don't keep like, I think we can keep a doc. We could make a principle. We could say, hey, every time we finish a feature, we go and build the architecture documentation in the docs folder. And we could keep a final docs, like a source of truth docs folder that's supposed to be kept up to date, which may or may not be kept up to date because agents, maybe they do it. This would be on us then whenever we are generating the plan to verify like, hey, there's a task there to go and update the docs,
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, yeah.
I see. Yeah, you can also specify a feature that is actually doing that, right?
Yeah, I think.
So you say, okay, my feature, I want to change the documentation. So the reason I'm building the documentation is to have all the user stories of my system in the final state of the current state, and then it goes and update it. Okay, so
Yeah, I think so. Okay, so I'm just adding 2 comments here. I say the content editing is out of scope, and I'm saying cache layer is out of scope. This is a bit premature because it never even suggested the cache layer. I just want to record that so that it doesn't even try. And it also came here and added some edge cases here. Like what happens when a book has 0 pages? I think we shouldn't show it, right? Do we want to introduce the concept of a draft versus published?
not now. I think
Yeah.
For now this spec should be assuming that the story, the database has at least 1 page.
Yeah.
And then let things fail if this is not the case, or just throw an error message if this is not the case, right?
Okay.
And then cannot like when you're creating a new story on an admin, for instance, then you have this validation.
Database constraints do not allow books, but that's I don't know. Let's say we should show it in the UI. Each client should log error in console. I wish there was a dictate here as well. That's a feature request. Should log error in console. Books should always at least have 1 page. I was going to write this as like a database constraint, but I think there's a difference between a spec and the plan. When we reach the plan, that's where we go into technical details. That's where we should say things like there's no caching layer, there should be a data constraint on books and pages. That's technical. This is non-technical. This is pure user stories. Feel free to open this on your end if you want to go ahead and add a comment. But yeah, it's up to you.
No, I'm watching you doing now.
Okay, how does the system handle a page with missing Indonesian or English text? Again, I feel it's the same thing. Handle the same as invalid data. Feel free to just like put a comment if you think you don't agree. What happens if the backend returns malformed or incomplete data? I'm just gonna ignore it.
A suggestion, a feature request is to be constantly checking for updates on the page, and I see in real time because I have to refresh to see your comments.
Okay, yeah. And so this thing, the Spec Ledger, is backed by Supabase. So I'm pretty sure that there's a way to set up a WebSocket to reload the page or to update the data. So what I liked when I first started with spec-driven development was exactly this. I make a very short or high-level description of what I want, and the model makes a whole bunch of assumptions and then shows me what assumptions it made. And then it also asks me a bunch of questions like, is that assumptions correct? And I really like that because I was not able sometimes to control the output. Like the model created something that was like 80% what I wanted, and then a whole bunch I didn't want, and some stuff that I wanted wasn't there. And so here I feel like I have a lot more control.
Fine tune.
Yeah. How does the app behave on slow network connections? Out of scope, I think, for this. So here, when I say out of scope, it might be that there's a constitution principle talking about performance, and then that's where we would be like, this. I often find that there's a constitution principle talking about performance, and I always go, no, I don't want, I don't care, for the MVP. We can always go into iteration on performance optimizations later. Oh, yeah, actually, it's not really about performance optimization. It's more like, yeah, it is. It's about bandwidth utilization. Anyway, then we have the function requirements. So I have to be honest, right? These documents can get very long. And as I can tell right now, I'm already like, I don't really care about the functional requirements and I would like not look at them. But I force myself sometimes to walk away, get some fresh air, get a glass of water or a coffee, and come back and actually finish reading it. Because the model sneaks in something in there that I may not agree with. And then halfway through the implementation, I found out it's doing things that I don't want. And then I ask it, what are you doing? And it says, yeah, it's functional requirement number 6, dude. You didn't read it or what?
Yeah.
So I have to read it. System must store all books. Yeah. System must store all page content, correct. System must serve the book catalog. System must preserve the existing data structure. That sounds good. System must support content updates. Maintain current books and their 30 pages as seed data. Yeah, we want to keep those seed data, right? It says here you really want to keep the data that you already put in there.
As yeah.
Yeah, it says here.
But I want to add that as a seed file.
You want to have a seed file. A seed. Yeah, let's look into the technical part. That's technical. Like, how do you want to do it with the seed? Okay, so let's it identified the entities, criteria. A new book can be added.
Because
No previous
data is
feature.
related to testing, right?
Yeah, I know what you're saying, because I also agree with you that we need to have like the ability to bootstrap and with seeding a test environment for like end-to-end testing in the future, right? So I think that's a really good approach. And actually that might be something we should put in the principles. Say that whenever we work on a feature, we maintain seed data and we set up the ability to bootstrap an environment using seed data. That's something we should put in the principles. Maybe I want to put that in. Where is it? Here. Add this, add as a core any feature in the constitution. I don't know if it knows what I'm talking about, so I'm writing it in caps. We want data seeds to bootstrap environments for E2E testing. Okay. Maybe a bit over engineering for an MVP, but yeah, the idea is to work on this as a team. So as a team, you want to be able to bootstrap things and run locally. However, because of Supabase, we do get like a shared database. And I think Supabase has the ability to create different versions and forks. Like you can create forks of your data if you want to collaborate on different, but I've never used that. So we may have less of this, like, have a Docker compose with a seed file to stand up an environment locally, because we're kind of like using Supabase. I don't know. Oh, assumption. So because I did the MCP configuration and told it to look for Supabase, it put Supabase in here. You see?
Yeah.
If it wasn't aware that there was already a Supabase, it wouldn't have put it in here. And this to me is not it shouldn't be into the spec. It's a technical detail, but I'm gonna keep it. Okay, so
But just to be clear with the spec, Supabase will be used as the backend. But Supabase is just a database, right?
Okay, so Supabase, I also didn't really understand what it was, but I actually got a lot more impressed by it after I found out what it is. It's a Postgres collection of plugins, like Postgres extensions, and a bunch of microservices. For example, it uses PG REST, which are all open source, and you can completely run Supabase locally. You can actually run Supabase stack locally as well. So it runs like it runs a service. I think it's written in Elixir or Haskell or something, which exposes Postgres CRUD as REST API. So it's called PG REST. It runs PG True, which allows you to single sign on. So, for example, when you use SpecLedger and you authenticate, that's actually using Supabase SSO, like sign-on mechanisms, using the Supabase login through PG True. It's pretty cool. Like when I had to set up my own solution based on Postgres, and I wanted to add SSO and all that, I had to build everything, and then I found out later, Supabase is a collection of microservices that actually allows you to use Postgres as a backend, and it's fully open source. You can run it yourself. You can self-host it.
Postgres as a backend.
Yeah, so you can expose data CRUD, create, read, update as a PG, like as REST interfaces.
Oh,
Yeah.
so it's but your business logic goes where?
Yeah, I also don't know. The business logic. This is one of the things I don't really like about Supabase, because I like to build my Golang, API, where I have my repository pattern, and I have my business logic layer, and then I have my connector layer, right? My transport layer, which is the REST interface. So I agree with you. When I first use Supabase, I'm like very frustrated because I don't know where is the separation between the data model and the business logic. But in SpecLedger, I work with a couple of people and they're using Supabase and it's working. I don't ask the question anymore.
Okay.
Where is the business logic?
Okay.
It's a
Well,
good
you can
question.
always see on the code where it is, right? In the
So this is the thing about AI, right? The code. I have a feeling is that we don't really look at the code no more. We really want to just validate that the code works. So we need to capture these user stories, and then we need to capture like formal validation of those user stories. So as long as the code works and we have benchmarks and performance is okay, and we don't have massive degradations and the thing doesn't fall on its face even after iterating on it, I think in the future, unfortunately, we will rarely look at the
give
code.
up,
And if yeah,
give up control.
I think that's one of
Okay.
the main takeaways of Adam Jacobs from System Initiative when he talked about the future with agentic coding, is that you can be in this in between. If you keep holding on to the code, you will be exhausted because you get so much code thrown at you that you have no ability to review all of it. And
Mhm.
so trying to hold on to it is detrimental to your health, to your, yeah, anyway.
Interesting.
Big philosophical discussions here about that. I don't know. I still think Spec Ledger is meant to be a way to collaborate and get the agents to produce code that maybe if you still have people that care about the code, that they can still review it. They can put in the principles, we can put in the linters, we can put in all of the deterministic control, and so that we reduce. That's always been the goal of our work, is to automate as much of the review process, right? With linting, with complexity checkers and things like that. So
Mhm.
yeah, there's definitely a fight on both sides. Okay, so I've got a
Okay.
couple of comments. There's a couple of questions in here. Let's run the clarify. So again, if I'm hitting the context limit, this is where I can absolutely clear my session because I can just start from fresh, or because I'm using a rather big context window here, I can continue using it, but you don't have to keep using it, right? I think the biggest benefit of using something like SpecLedger is that you can clear your context and start fresh every time because you're capturing what you want in on disk, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm going to run the clarify. I'm not going to give it additional instructions. Normally, it should find all of the comments that we've put on there. So the first thing it does is obviously it's going to load the context because it doesn't know that this is already in the context. So it's calling the SL binary, the SpecLedger binary, to find information about the current spec that we're working on, and getting information about what has already been done, like do we already have this file and so on. And then it's also actually listing the comments that may be available on the spec. So we put a couple of comments there, it's going to pull them down, right? And if there are no comments, it will say there's no comments, but I found some questions, and it's going to address the questions.
So let me understand. The comments that we added, they are added to the GitHub repo as well?
No, so that's where the metadata splits off. So the source of truth is the spec and the user stories. That's the final one that you get to. And then the metadata around it, like I left comments. You see, it says here, I left comments. Those comments are metadata in Supabase. So, yeah. But ultimately, the final outcome of the interaction between you and me, it's going to capture that information normally. It's going to say like, I've adjusted these things. It's going to boot the git commit based on these comments. I've made these adjustments. And so Git is really going to show the end result after handling those comments. Yeah. So the comments are not in Git. Not
Okay,
everything's in Git, unfortunately. So yeah, it did say like, hey, there were 7 detailed comments that already resolved most of the ambiguities. And I also referred the constitution file, so he actually goes and look for it. Yay! I'm surprised. And so it goes and updates the file. So I like to give it full permission to do what it needs to do, and then I keep the diff on the side here. So it went ahead and it went to version 1.1. It added a new constitution here about seed data. Yay! And it also went into the spec, and it says we just did the clarification section. What replaces the data? A backend database. Cache layer is out of scope for this sprint. Blah 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 blah. A book exists in the backend with 0 pages. Okay, so he added a new user story based on our clarification. The home screen renders, the book is excluded from the library, and an error is logged to console. Okay. It removed the whole content management spec. What happens when a book has 0 pages? It must not appear. So it added an auto-scope section, and it clarified a little bit some things. I'm quite happy with this. So this is something that I want to improve on SpecLedger. It's resolving the comments, but it's not telling us how. You should reply to the comment on how it is resolved. Actually, there's a bug. It's gonna get an error when you try to do the comment. SL comment reply fails with row level security policy, and there's already a pull request to fix it. I'm not sure if it was
No, I got it, but if the comments are not in Git, I see. So then Cloud Code is just creating the comment in Spec Ledger.
Yeah. So my SL binary is authenticated against my user, my permissions. Maybe the comment bug is fixed. Let me try it. I'm going to say no. Can you reply to each comment how it is addressed before resolving it? Honestly, I think the resolve command should basically require a reason. Like you shouldn't be allowed to resolve without a reason. So this is a problem with the skill and the prompt. The clarify prompt should tell Claude to resolve before, to comment before. Okay, so it's gonna try. Okay, errors. Here. Fix clarify and comment reply. It's not merged yet. So this is updating. As you can see, the clarify is updating to make sure that the model replies, and he's also changing some configuration so that the error shouldn't happen anymore. Okay, so unfortunately the PR is not merged yet. So I knew this was going to be an error.
Okay, so what you're trying to do is not only resolve the comment, but also reply to the comment saying, okay, I got it, and this is what I want to do.
Exactly, yeah. It then doesn't work. Yeah. Anyway, so it resolved the comments now. So if we go here, unfortunately here I want to see the reply, but right now it just resolved them with no reply. But that's okay. Let's commit and push. So it says if we are good, because right now it has identified all 7 comments have been resolved. Actually, it did not ask me. So I guess the clarifications were good enough, but normally it should cluster and it should ask me if I agree with the way that it's addressing it, right? It made all the edits for me, and I looked at the diff, and then it went and resolved. That's not good, right? I wanted to tell me like, hey, I see this, and I'm going to resolve it this way. So this is another issue that I think SpecLedger prompt is not correct. The SpecLedger prompt should very clearly tell Claude, you must ask the user for his preference if he agrees with the way that we're resolving these issues, right? And it does that normally, but I guess because of the way I answered the questions, very definitive. So it probably assumed that the questions were answered by me in a very definite way, and it just executed it. And I guess that's okay. And so the reason I always ask the model to commit and push, that I can do session list. Okay, and I can see there's 14 messages against that commit. Oh, this one is 8B225D3, right? So we have 14 messages. So here we see all of the messages that led to it. So what we are trying to do is we're trying to capture the user agent interaction that comes to commit messages. So later we can do a full analysis about everything and how the user agent interaction was, and then we can do a retrospective if this was acceptable or not, right? Okay, so it's adding the git and doing the git commit and the status. So normally now I should have another capture. I see it just captured another 11 messages. So when your question is like, this again is not in Git, but it's inside inside the metadata. But SpecLedger tries to collect a lot of metadata about the process of how we interact with the agents, so that we can then distill knowledge base, so that we can identify patterns and then improve the process. For example, if after we do the work and we identify that the implementation is not going well, or it's we're facing certain issues, we can then analyze the data. Anyway, we want to implement something, right? We ultimately want to have the thing working. So this is probably the most frustrating part about spec-driven development, is that there's a lot of upfront effort. Where if you went into Claude Code and you said, I want Supabase backend, and you do it plan mode, it would probably finish it within like an hour, right? So normally they are all resolved, it's updated. So let's go into the plan. In the plan is where I can tell it technical details. So if I didn't do the initial init with Supabase, here is where I would say, we have a Supabase project, and we want to use Supabase as the backend. Do a spike on Supabase or do something like that, right? So the plan mode is a little bit like what happens in Claude Code plan mode. It will normally explore the database, explore the code. So this is something I have to change about the prompt. It should always read the template before writing to it. I noticed that a lot of times it will just start writing and then get an error and say, I need to read it first. So I just upfront tell it to do that. So yeah, again, when it runs this SL spec, it sees that the spec.md exists. So now it's doing the explore, right? It's running 2 explore agents. Also, if you're running, if you have only the Claude Code Pro plan, running multiple explorations at the same time will probably exhaust your plan very quickly. It's gonna work on the search. What's it doing? Yes. Web search, yes. You can do web search. Okay, cool. If you go into plan mode in Claude, it will always launch an exploration to figure out what's the current state of the files. Sorry, of the file system and the source files. And it will read things. And then also it may do some web searches to figure out like how to resolve some problems. So the plan prompt here does the same thing. It will identify, it will find technical context. It will often compare different libraries, like do I want to use this authentication library? Do I want to use this regular expression library or whatever, you know? So it will allow you to identify what is the different options that you have, and then it will recommend one of them. And when it does that, I like to capture all of that. So it goes all into a research document, and the research document will show you the things that have been researched, and then it will pick one and it will keep that there. So later on, if you decided that that choice wasn't right, you can always go back and then try and do it and go in a different direction, right? Mm-hmm. So that's why you should separate the spec, the non-technical, from the technical, because the user stories, they can be implemented technically differently, right? Depending on the libraries you choose and so on. So
that's what you mean about on the spec. The spec and the plan. The spec is the user requirement, and the plan is where you put the technical details. Is that right?
Yes, correct. The spec is the very like higher level business type of user stories with functional requirements and success criteria. And then the plan is where we go into technical details, the research. We do spikes on different libraries, on different architectures, and then once we've done the research and we've got a high level plan, then we actually break that down into tasks, and then we, let the agents implement it. So then the agents will go and take tasks and implement and build the solution according to plan. Yeah. The reason I'm not allowing it to use the issue command and just do the thing, always approve the issue, is because I want to review the issues it creates. I could actually approve it to do the issue. So you see, it did some research and it created an initial plan. And in the plan, it will say like, hey, it will identify the languages and the storage mechanism. So this plan has not been filled out yet. This is just an empty template. But normally it will also go and highlight like some of the researches that I did. So it wrote a research document. It says we're going to use Supabase as a backend. There's an existing project there. It has Postgres as the database. We could use a custom API such as Express, which is a necessary overhead. Firebase, it would require a new project, different tooling. Prisma, just what I told you, right? It evaluated different options, showed you which one it picked, and why that one is probably, it's basically saying the user already connected it. So, yeah. And it's doing a data schema. So it's saying these are the type of queries that need to be provided. The data model looks like this. Books have these columns. These are the pages. So if you do this with like go in ChatGPT with 5.4 or whatever, it will give you these data models as well, right? But then often you end up like copy pasting it over, or it's a kind of like, finding the way to visualize this, and so that's what I really like about this flow.
And can I see this data mod MD on the spec ledger in a nice way?
As soon as I commit and push it, that's the only thing, right? I need to commit and push it. Yeah. So this it's kind of the way that you need to work with your team, is like somebody's gonna go off and do this research, and maybe he's gonna ask Claude to do a couple more spikes. Maybe he doesn't agree with some of these decisions, and then finally he can then, commit and push and then take it back to the team and say, hey guys, here's the thing. Now, the one thing I don't like currently in the interface is that these URLs are like very hard to understand. So if I then copy this and share this to you, you're like have no idea what I'm sharing with you, right? We're going to change this. We're going to make it so that you can see this is project, your project, and this is going to be the spec, which is a backend spec. So when we share links with each other, we can remember like, oh, this is the backend spec link, and we want to focus on the plan and so on. So actually, that's how I designed the open source version of it. When you click on things here, you can see, you can actually almost change this from github.com. My design was like, I wanted to be that if you type github.com and you do
It's gonna
like,
be the same, yeah.
yeah, it's just, I think is it 3 main? It's not exactly the same. We are splitting off some paths. Let's see, does that work? Yeah, it's almost the same.
Yeah.
Not the same at all. Just have to, because we are shortcutting the URL a little bit. So this is the repo, this is the organization, the repository, and this is the
Yeah,
the
just
spec.
put the link to GitHub there.
Yeah. So we do have
Yeah.
that. We do have links to GitHub everywhere here. You can copy the branch easily. So if you want to check this out, if you go to the main thing here, you can open. Oh, where is it? Bikara. Here, you have the link here to GitHub here. So we try to put the links as much as possible, and also so that if you want to check out this branch, you should copy it here, or if you're looking at the spec. Anyway, let's push this. I always tell it it's for team alignment, so it knows that like, hey, we're not working alone. You know, we're working in a team.
Yeah. Okay, now if I
It hasn't pushed yet. It's
Because
give me a
usually the
second.
data model is something that I like to review.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Like, we should be having a look at that. Okay, so there are now 3 commits. So now you have the second over. Oh, did it pushed my super
Yeah,
page?
I can see.
Let's push it.
Plan, nice. Specify requirement and spec. Plan, data model. Beautiful.
I mean,
Slug style. Is vocab page. Yeah, nice.
I mean, ultimately, this is all Opus doing the work, right? But yeah, at least we can, have a look here and decide, is this make sense? Let's have a look. See the existing Firebooks and update the client to fetch the data via the Supabase JS client. All content is public read only with RLS policies. So this is something about Supabase, like row level security policies. Again, here it put this thing about like home screen loads with less than 2 seconds. Like, I usually think these are so. I think it's one of the original GitHub spec kit prompts where every single feature needs to have performance like indicators. So it's hard grained within the templates for it to make these statements. And to me, usually I find them.
Yeah, well, what do you find about it? It's okay, right? It's not that.
It's okay. It just, for me, sometimes I hope it doesn't distract the agent to focus on the wrong
Okay.
thing. That's like sometimes, or if I do a cross analysis, because once we've done this, right? So now we've done the plan. And do you think anything like stands out? I think it's a fairly basic plan, right? I don't think we need to worry too much about it. C data is applied via the execute SQL. Like, normally the quick start is going to be a little bit more hands-on. For me personally, I always feel the quick start is kind of giving me the first impression. Like, definitely if I'm writing a CLI, I want to see the commands. Like, once this is done, then I will have this command. And as a user, when I run this, then this happens. When I run this, then that happens. In a more like hands-on view, like what are the actual positional arguments? What are the flags to the CLI? So for these type of web projects, in this case, like, it's a little bit more like from a dev perspective, because we use Supabase, we're installing the client, and then when we run these, when we set up this configuration, then blah blah blah, it works. Yeah, so it did some research here on Supabase. There was no prior work. Yeah, I think it's good to go. I'm gonna kick
I'm
off.
feeling like
Yeah.
feeling lucky. Let's go.
So now we need to. Unfortunately, Cloud Code. Originally, we use spec-ledger.tasks, but Cloud Code added task as well. I think there's a bit of an overlap now in these things. I don't think I need to provide any other prompt. I'm just gonna say generate and break this down into tasks. So this is kind of like, now it's gonna create the JIRA tickets. You know, because we're doing the original software delivery lifecycle, but we're doing it all in Git with an agent at a much higher and faster rate, right? So it's gonna, you know, identify the big phases, like the foundational setup. You know, I need to install the Supabase client. Then I need to integrate the components to call out the client to read, and so on and so on. Then I need to like upload, seed all the data into Supabase and all that stuff. So it's creating here the epic, which is backend data migration, migrate hard-coded book content into Supabase Postgres. Okay. So this is why I did not allow Cloud Code or give permission to Cloud Code to run the SL issue command, because I like to review every single thing it creates. Like I'm very much bottlenecking the AI at the moment. Most people, they are like 100% let it do. And then, yeah, anyway, so it's like, okay, it's going to install the client, configure the environment. Yeah, looks good. I could just give it access. Let me just give it full permission to create all the issues. Oh, it has some command substitution here.
So it's creating the tickets in JIRA. So you have a JIRA account
No, it's
connected to that.
issue list. We are
In
storing
Git,
in Git.
in
Yes.
Git. Okay, okay. Git
So here
hub.
you see there's the issues.json here. So this is in Git, and the moment I push this up, Spec Ledger will visualize this. It's so the idea comes from Steve Yeager's Beats. So Steve Yeager, he built Beats back in October or so, and it became quite a popular tool to manage tasks for agents, and so much so that Cloud actually adopted a lot of these principles, and even they gave credit to Steve Yeager for this system, because they kind of built Cloud Code task management with dependencies uh, based off how Beats works. But Beats also made some decisions that we didn't like. So they originally were using SQLite and so on. It wasn't really working well, causing a lot of conflicts. So we adopted, we just took the original design and we just integrated directly into our binary. So that's why we can see. I need to approve the tickets, of course. Yes, and don't ask again. So now you should be faster at creating them. So here I can see a little tree of it, but then of course when I push it, I can see it better visualized inside the web. So it created the foundational setup, and it says I need to see the data. Like I'm gonna then create hooks on pages. Actually, it did the initial setup. So so you see it created the epic, and then the first feature is to set up Supabase client and set up the connectivity from the client to the project. So that's the first one. Then the second one is define the schema, setting up the row level security, then upload, seed the existing books into it, create books and pages, tables. How can it seed them and create the pages? There should be a dependency between them. He's definitely going to create all the blockers and dependencies between them at the end, I think. And then he has the other two user stories here, which is read books from the backend and browse the library from the backend. So yeah, now he's creating the links between them. As you see, he's saying issue this one blocks that one blocks this one. Yes. So he's writing a little markdown file to provide any agent information about how it is indexed, like how to find information within the issue database. Yeah, it finished. So right now, none of them have started. Has been created. All right, so I want to look at the Spec Ledger now. There's a task here. So it gives an overview of the epic ID, the dependency graph, and information on how to read it. Yeah. So this is a fairly small and simple plan, but sometimes it could be very complicated, right? We can also see the task list here. We can see the tree, same as in the console, right? We can click on any of them and review, like, there's different fields like description, design, acceptance. But here it has created like, where is this one, right? Create singleton client using create client database, import database type, use next public Supabase URL and next public anon key, Supabase imported, blah, blah, definition of done. So once this is done, it will check off these items. Yeah. So this looks very much like JIRA, right?
Yep.
You can even see it in the Kanban view. Like if I do SL issue list, I have the ability to see blocked. Yeah, all of these are blocked. Okay. I think we should go and start implementing, right?
Yeah. Assuming that all the tests are relevant.
When I was not on the current plan that I'm on and my Claude Code would run out of context very quickly, I would always need to clear my Claude Code agent session and start again. And that's where I'm having these tasks broken down, often based on exactly which files need to be modified and what's the end state. So it clearly says this file needs to be modified in this way. And this depends on, like, normally it shows here it's blocked by this, you see. So this task shows that these files need to be done. So the agent would know, like, I cannot do this before that, and I need to go and file and edit this file. And so this would allow me to clear the context and basically work off whatever's in the task. Yeah, and I wouldn't hit
So,
my...
well, pretty much everything that we're doing, the agent to do in the same context window without any human validating the steps. So
At the moment, yeah. But normally
yeah.
we would be like killing the agent sessions and they would
No,
be...
I mean, I'm getting spec ledger value, which is doing the whole process of building the feature, allowing the human to validate every step
Yes.
if he wants, and influence, and also refraining, helping the agent not to have this massive context window that might confuse itself, right? That it can get distracted and do things wrong. So you do step by step, you give feedback, and you clean up the memory of the agent to build every task.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's mainly the goal. I mean, that's how I felt about the first time when I used spec-driven development. But my biggest issue with spec-driven development was still that I couldn't align with anyone else, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so that's why I still feel I like that you can put everything in GitHub. So with spec-driven development, I was putting everything in GitHub. But then when I asked people to look at it, they didn't know what to look at because they didn't understand what file was important, and the GitHub user interface wasn't good enough. So that's why Spec Ledger exists, really, to be able to highlight the phases and to highlight what you should be focused on. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
It should start implementing it, and hopefully you have a project backed by Supabase, and you can then iterate, and then you can start working on. You can use Spec Ledger on your own, and you can try and add the content editing backend, for example. And this is really cool. Now it starts using Supabase to like identify I just really honestly at this point just want to give it full
Yeah,
permission.
I just wonder if with Supabase, the backend logic is not on the repository. It's on Supabase itself.
Yeah, so they do have one thing which is like functions. So and it's using Dino, so it's like JavaScript. So you can create business logic functions like endpoints that handle certain type of business logic. Wow, Claude just went Cthulhu on my.
It's
It's
wow.
some rendering issues. It's very hacker-like. Yo, at this point, there's no production
Interesting.
database to delete, so just go ahead and do everything you want. I think we will see that now tables are being created here, though. Books are here,
Yeah, okay.
pages are here.
I got it. The tables. Great. The tables are in the database. Great. But what I don't get is where's the backend logic? Is it here in Supabase or?
I also don't know. And this is something I definitely need to explore more. I'm very noob. Like I just said at the start of this call, that I'm very noob
Okay.
on Supabase. I've seen it used by my friends with great success, and I feel it's very powerful. You can create edge functions. You can, like for example, the whole GitHub app of SpecLedger is a Supabase edge function. So when we created the GitHub app, it points to the Supabase edge function. That means every commit or every event triggers this edge function. It then parses, gets the content, parses out, renders down the issues, like gets information it needs to create these things. So the edge function is where the business logic kind of lives, right? But yeah, to be honest, I give it full access right now. Everything I say yes to, go ahead. It's doing the seed data, so let's see if the seed data is there. Yay, they're all here.
Before.
Yeah. Yeah, it's created 5 books with cover color. Yeah, my terminal has decided to go full cursed. It's mesmerizing to look
That's
at.
funny.
It is. Actually, switch this to view 3. Close the graph. Also, it created the migration schema here. It created the seeds. Oh, it actually did it what you wanted.
Yeah, the insert scripts. And that's on the repo. Okay.
It added Supabase into package.json. I'm not even sure. Did it pick the last one? Like npm view at Supabase JS version. Yeah, it picked the last one. So it did good. Because I often found when you use Claude, then they pick some version based on their training data, some super old version. There's one thing I would recommend in your repo, and I'm going to do it now, and it's something that I want to build into Spec Ledger directly. It's the ability to add the skill. Oh, can I just do find? Okay, so I want to find the designer. I want the Entropic front-end design one. I really recommend you to put that one in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really nice. For Claude Code, you use Claude Code or use Cursor?
If I put money, I'll put on Claude Code. Yeah.
Yeah. Symlink. Well, why not just Symlink it? Yes. And then another one. Sorry.
No, I'm thinking of using Claude Code inside Cursor.
Yeah, I think you can. But like you see, I don't really use my editor much except for looking at the file. So there's a whole bunch of them. There was another one I wanted to add, but I forgot. Anyway, the agent is implementing, created all the issues, and it's doing a build. So I think it's almost done. Well, honestly, the scope that we picked was very small, right? Just take all of the 5 stories, create the schemas, move them over, and then now it hooked up the books. So instead of taking it from book data, it's reading the types, and I guess it's modifying your front end to read from it. So it actually is gonna update. It's checking the definition of done. It says I'm fetching books from Supabase. I've updated the home screen. I added the validation. So it says the builds succeeded. So what about we validate that a little bit? Like if I run npm dev, it should basically run. It's loading books from Supabase. All right. Well, it tells us that it's loading from Supabase. It works. How do I know it's loading from Supabase?
Okay, yeah, go to Supabase and change the data.
So at the video, at the
Uh,
conference.
yes.
And now what? Is it stored? So now if I refresh, where is it at the park? At the conference.
It is.
What a good test. Okay, so you have a backend now, and we can look at the diff if we care. So it changed quite a lot of changes. So it loaded, instead of loading the books data, it actually added a validation as well, and excluded. It actually did a console error if the book has 0 pages, and it's using the states to, manage the book's variables and contents. So this is through a fetch book and use effect. So I am not a front-end engineer. I have no idea if this is a good practice or not. So this is where I would look for a skill to do an audit on this code, to ask Claude, go have a look and look for if this is appropriate. Like, for example, I would expect n+1s and things like that, right? So it's doing like a selection on the books, and then I guess it's going to do a selection on the, I guess it only fetches the pages when you click on the book. Yeah, so it gets the books, and then it handles the loading. So before it didn't have to do that, but now it has to handle loading, like it's loading books. That's what we saw as well, right? When we changed things. And it's handling that stuff too. And on the home screen, changes, very minimal. On the interactive book, it just points to the types. It added a whole bunch of new files for the types and the Supabase interactivity.
So where is the backend? That's my last. Where is the backend?
That will remain a mystery forever.
So what might be happening is that there is no backend. There's just a database, and the front end is the one handling everything.
Yeah, Supabase is a backend as a service. It exposes Postgres as a backend. Where is the backend in the library? I think we will see when it fetches the data. Where is it? Here, it has a database one. It has the CRUD here. Insert, update, create, delete. I guess this is like the schema. How is this generated? I have no idea. Where did it come from? Where did it go? Yeah, so this is now. Yeah. Like I said, I wanted to. I'm an open Supabase. I've seen it successfully being used. I thought it would be fast to get it working as a backend.
And you are right about all of that.
So those questions will be require. I mean, we can ask. Okay, let's go ahead and, because that's what agents are good for as well, right? It's gonna update them all, and then I'm gonna do the commit and push. Maybe I can ask a Claude session here. Let's just spin up a new Claude. I don't understand. So, based on Claude and the code base structure, there is no backend. Oh, come on, wait. Look at Git. diff at get diff on disk. We just implemented backend, but I don't understand. Okay. Oh, remove the old static data. Okay, so he's removing the data. I guess one of the tasks was to clean up. We didn't even check the tasks. I like the tree view more. Remove, yeah, I guess it's at this task now. So every time I have to commit and push for this to reflect the actual, reality what's in Git, right? So if I were to tell it in between, like if this was a longer procedure, I would in between tell it, okay, we finished this phase, let's commit and push, and then it will show in progress what's finished and so on. So you can achieve that, but reality is when we narrow scope everything, oftentimes it goes from planning everything out to implementation very quickly. But yeah, the goal is to basically be able to manage that as well, right? So he keeps building, and he's like super scared that he's very, very careful. Okay, so I think we're reaching about 2 hours. I'm amazed that we were able to do this in 2 hours, because I always end up, with 5-hour recordings when I try this.
Mm-hmm.
I know you probably have a lot more questions, and I think what would be nice is if you try to add a backend, like the content manager view. But I guess you'll just play around with Supabase a bit more and
Yeah.
try to understand this all.
Yeah, the questions I have are not related to the Spec Ledger and the flow.
Okay, so here he answered all your questions. He said the data is moved to Supabase, which is a hosted Postgres. The frontend fetches as runtime. The schema is there. The seed data is there. The client is there. So the data fetching is using useEffect. The business logic, there isn't much. It's essentially a read-only data migration. The backend logic is Supabase row-level security authorization is public read, no writes. So that means anonymous, they can just reading, they cannot write. So when you start to work on the content editing part, that's where you will probably need to use the MCP, and you will need to research and identify how do my content managers authenticate, how do they get access to write and all that. Yeah. So that will be fun. Maybe we can do another session. Maybe you try it out first, and then we can do another session.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I make sure that it's pushed. It works. I changed the content in the database, and it worked, but only reflected after refresh. I don't know if that matters. Maybe I can ask it to create a GitHub issue like data isn't updated until I refresh the page. So what did he do? 15 issues closed, implementation complete. Okay, so he's creating an issue here. He says data changes are not reflected until page refresh. When the book content is updated, these changes are not reflected until reproduced like this. Expected behavior, data is fixed. So you already have a bug report here. I'm assuming that you can't fix this unless you set up some type of WebSocket and stuff. And I think it's very low priority, so probably not important. Final touches. Is there any other things you wanted to ask, or I think we're about done. Oh, actually, I forgot one important step. Basically, the constitution is there, and we are doing the specify, we're doing the planning, we're doing the research. But when we generate the tasks, before we go into implement, actually we should do a read-only analysis. It's going to do a cross-reference of the tasks against the user stories and functional requirement, and it's going to validate that every task is mapped to a functional requirement, and also that every functional requirement, is met by the task. So that's one step that I missed. Because the project was pretty small, it's okay. Like, I'm pretty sure actually we could have vibe coded this, right? We could have told it like, hey, just move everything to Supabase. Here's the project. Here's the MCP, and it would have done a perfectly fine job. But to keep the presentation within 2 hours, and to, for that reason, still want to showcase the spec-driven development way, we skipped a couple of steps. But okay.
Yeah.
So cool.
Thank you, Vincent. Thank you very much.
Yeah, sorry that I forced Supabase onto you.
No, I will research. It's probably a good
Yeah,
idea to use it for
yeah,
my MVP.
cool.
And using Supabase for development is the data in the cloud? It is, right?
Yes, it's we're using Supabase for SpecLedger, but we have some on-prem deployments that we're looking at, and we're happy to find out that Supabase is completely open source and you can completely self-host it. So it's just a bunch. They have a Docker Compose. They have an Helm chart that you can run it on Kubernetes, but we're actually thinking of deploying this onto a single node, onto a single EC2 instance, because the only thing that's in Supabase is metadata, right? It's only the comments. It's only a parsed version of your task list, but the task list lives in Git. The spec lives in Git. Everything lives in Git. So there's no critical data in Supabase. So the way that we're looking at on-prem deployments is we're giving an AMI with Supabase bootstrapped onto it, and it just runs the Spec Ledger Next.js application, and you can just point your command line interface to that single node. Doesn't need a lot of high availability. I mean, depending on, like, it's good for a POC. If you want to scale it all across a huge organization and you need a higher availability, then we start looking at maybe using Kubernetes, putting Supabase in Kubernetes or things like that, right? So that's just because my initial resistance against Supabase was very similar to yours. Where is my business logic? Where is my backend, services, my API? How do I build it and stuff? It can't just be Postgres, right? You can't expose Postgres to the world. What are you doing?
Yeah.
It feels like that, right? And then another thing was like, and now I'm relying on the SaaS, right? And how do I run this on my own? So I didn't know until I did the research that you can actually self-host it. Anyway, there's a pull request here for you. So here we go. We have migrated everything to a Supabase backend.
Thank you, Vincent.
Yeah, thank you, Leandro, for the idea, for finding something that's well scoped so that we could do it within 2 hours. Thank you so much.
Perfect.